Whoa, what is going on, football fans? Back at it with another New York Giants video. Feels good to say that. Haven't said that in like a month. I've taken a month off from the content because I'm not trying to force content. I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about. When I feel like there's something worth talking about, we'll talk about it. And as the season gets closer, there's going to be a lot more to talk about. I'm really excited for training camp and to talk about some of the battles going in. Of course, practice has gotten underway, but I'm really excited to talk Giants this season with you guys. Love doing this. Love coming on here talking with you guys. I'll be live tomorrow on Patricia Traina's channel. First time I'll be live in a bit. So really looking forward to that. And then I'm probably going to start going live on this channel weekly, at least once a week, maybe in a week or two when I feel like there's stuff really worth talking about. But hopefully you guys are really enjoying your summer. And I know you guys are diehard Giants fans like me, so you can't wait for the regular season to get underway. But one topic that I definitely think is worth talking about, as news came out yesterday about Saquon Barkley, is the situation with Saquon Barkley. And I think we all knew when he was tagged, it was probably going to go down to the wire when it came to the tag deadline. And it appears that's what it's going to be. And as the tag deadline is getting closer, now you're starting to hear more and more rumblings. Barkley came out about a week ago, talked about his, status on the situation, the way that he views it. Now, the quote from Ian Rappaport came out yesterday that we'll get to in a minute. And I'll give my opinion on the whole situation. And I'll try to at least, say what I think is probably going through Joe Shane's head or what would be going through my head if I was Joe Shane. And I'm going to try to be as objective as I possibly can because I see the argument both for and against Saquon Barkley. I do. I got to be completely honest. I am trying to be more in the middle. I think Barkley should be back. I think Barkley should be back on more than the tag, but I don't think you could bend over backwards for him. That's where I'm at. For people say that he should be forced to play on the tag, I understand the logic, and we'll talk more about it throughout this video. For people that say give him whatever he wants, I understand it. He's an important player. He's the face of the franchise, probably, the most popular player on this football team, and definitely a guy that was a major reason why this team went to the playoffs last year. We'll talk about all of it throughout the video and, really dive into it and give my opinion as to what I think the Giants will do and what they should do regarding the Barkley contract situation. And it's a sticky situation. It's not as cut and dry as Daniel Jones. It's not as cut and dry as Dexter Lawrence. It's not as cut and dry as what Andrew Thomas will be. You got a quarterback that you feel is a franchise guy, which obviously Dable and Shane felt. You pay the man. You make sure you get him locked up at the most important position. You got a franchise left tackle. You pay the man. You got yourself a franchise pass rusher. You pay the man. When it comes to the running back spot, especially a player that's had an injury history, especially a player that's 26, it's not as cut and dry. Had Barkley never gotten hurt, it would have been simple. You would have extended him after his third year, much like they did with Christian McCaffrey, and he would have got a contract similar to that. Things were different for Saquon Barkley. Not his fault, bad luck. And now we sit here. We're in this situation where Saquon Barkley had the worst luck in the world. He rolled craps. He became a free agent in a free agency class where the top three running backs were franchise tagged, where it was a rich draft class at the running back position, and there's no market to speak of as the running back position continues to be, I think, slightly devalued in recent years. Do I understand the logic behind it? Absolutely. And we'll talk more about it. But first, let's get to the quote regarding Ian Rappaport. The two sides have had conversations, Ian Rappaport said Tuesday, a deal that the Giants pulled off the table right before they did the Daniel Jones deal. He's now back on the table. The fact that they've had conversations and are still talking is good news. Let's also talk about what Barkley had to say recently on the subject. I think at the end of the day, if you really break it down and look at it as a whole, there is no rush, Barkley told reporters recently. That is how I look at it. I trust the Giants that we could get something done. And at the end of the day, it's what I've said all along. I think they will get something done. I think the Giants want to do right by Barkley, but at the same time, they got to do right by this organization. I never thought he was going to – I thought he would be tagged as it got closer and closer, but I didn't think that he was ultimately going to play on the tag, and I still don't think that as it gets closer. I think it's very similar to the Daniel Jones situation. They obviously tagged Saquon Barkley because they worried that a team was going to be willing to pay him more than, what they felt was reasonable value. Because once you hit the open market, crazy things happen. And people talk about how he wouldn't have gotten that. You don't know that. None of the top running backs hit the free agency market, and Saquon Barkley is a weapon. He's a weapon that's 26, however, that doesn't have quite as much value as a guy like McCaffrey did when he was 23. And he does have an injury history, and he does play the running back position. Then the question becomes, how valuable is Saquon Barkley to this team? Because at the end of the day, that's the question. That's the question if you're Joe Schoen. How valuable is he to this team? And not just how valuable is he to this team in 2023, but how valuable is he to this team in 2024 and potentially 2025 when you talk about structuring a contract? How does Joe Schoen envision building this team? One constant argument I hear from people that say don't bring back Saquon Barkley, that didn't even want him franchise tag or force him to play on the tag, is that you can manufacture a running game. And that argument makes complete sense because at the end of the day, if we're being honest with ourselves, that's how the best football teams in the league work. They build an elite offensive line, and, they let the Miles Sanders of the world go. The Philadelphia Eagles, they say, all right, we'll get another running back. Get a running back third, fourth round. We know we got the line. We know we can manufacture a running game, so on and so forth. Everybody always brings up the golden stat when it comes to Super Bowl winners. When's the last time they paid a running back more than 2% of the cap or whatever it is? And you go down the list since Marshawn Lynch, I think it is. It's been all very affordable running backs. And the New York Giants, for God's sakes, did it with Earth, Wind, and Fire. I love Brandon Jacobs. I love Ahmad Bradshaw, two of my favorite Giants of all time. But at the end of the day, were they, super uber talented? No, there's a reason they went in the 4th and 7th round. Why were they successful? Because the Giants built a team that was able to manufacture a strong running game. They don't have that right now, at least the way that I look at it, because that's an argument people make. Well, look what happened when we got rid of Tiki Barber. We had the platoon. We were able to have a great ground attack. I don't think we have that in place right now. In 2007, we had arguably the best offensive line in football. I think we're starting to build that way. If we had a team like that, I'd be on board, to be completely honest with you, probably tagging or maybe even moving on from Barkley and utilizing our resources elsewhere. We're not there. And to me, Saquon Barkley is way too important to this football team to just treat him like he's garbage. Just be like, oh, yeah, $10 million. There's a human element to this. It's not Madden. And I think a lot of people think of it in that aspect because they're not thinking about it from the aspect of the human element in the locker room, how this guy is, thought, from within that locker room with the players. So I think there's more that goes into it. And I think that's why the Giants all along, who are trying to set this culture that they're trying to do right by the guys that are viewed as leaders and guys that are respected in that locker room and the guys that are important, they want to do right by their players. And I don't think that they want to make the face of their franchise play on the franchise tag. I think they want to use the tag as a tool for what it's designed for. Ultimately, at the beginning, when they first instituted it, it was to do exactly what I think the Giants are doing with Barkley. Make it so you could, negotiate exclusively with him. And then as the offseason progresses, try to get a long-term deal done. But it makes it so other teams can't, basically steal your players from you year after year. It makes it so you get an opportunity to negotiate exclusively with your most important players on your football team. And had Daniel Jones not been a free agent at the same time, Barkley probably would have already been signed already. And like I said at the top of the video, had he never gotten hurt, he would have been extended after his 3rd year. But that didn't happen. That's reality. The guy's been hurt. As I've said, I think I made a video on it in January. What's fair value for Saquon Barkley? Don't just think about it from the mindset of a general manager. Think about it from the mindset of a player as well. I've said consistently, it starts at 2 tags. If you're Saquon Barkley, there's no sense. There's no sense in even going to the negotiating table if you're Joe Schoen, if the guaranteed money doesn't start at 2 tags. Otherwise, if you're Barkley, just play on the tag. And obviously, he doesn't want to play on the tag. So for me, it starts at $22 million guaranteed. That's the floor. I don't think that's what's going to get it done, but I think that's the floor. Barkley and his team is probably asking for closer to 30. And if you're Schoen, you're probably hoping to meet him in the $24 to $25 million range in terms of guaranteed money, which is all that matters, with potential incentives like there was for Daniel Jones. And in the end, that's what I think is going to happen. That's what I've thought for 3 months. It's what I still think. Just like I thought Daniel Jones was going to get his $40 million a year or 35 to 38, which is really what it was ultimately when you really look at the contract and the way that it's structured, because they could completely rip up that contract after the 3rd year. And I think it's 37.5 against the cap on average over the first 3, if I'm recalling the contract correctly. But this Saquon Barkley contract, that's what I think it's going to be. And I think he's going to be back with the football team. And I don't think it's just going to be on the tag. And when he's back, I think the Giants are going to have a really strong offense this year. And I can't wait for it. But if you're Shane, like I said earlier, you also have to think about when you're valuing Saquon Barkley, how you're building this team. And the goal should be long term not to invest a lot in running backs because, yes, I do believe in the mindset that you build in the trenches. And when you do build in the trenches, a running back, not a slight on Barkley, he's an incredible talent. He's a weapon. He's super important to this team, not taking anything away from him. But you can find value at that position more so than probably any other position in the NFL. So I get that argument from fans. But for me, the way that this team is currently constructed, you just gave Daniel Jones a $40 million a year contract, and you don't have that offensive line that we had in 2007. So what's the plan? Make Saquon Barkley play on the tag, his best weapon, when you have a growing and what we think will be improved offensive line, but nowhere near a finished product, and make it so he comes into camp super unhappy, his best weapon. I don't think it makes a lot of sense. I think you want to meet him in the middle. Now, a lot of this is going to come down to, obviously, Saquon Barkley himself. He's got to be willing to come off the number of whatever the New York Giants feel like is outlandish, and I know his agent has a lot to do with it. But if they could meet that $24-25 million a year, I'm guaranteed number, I should say, I think this deal gets done. And I think the New York Giants are in harmony as they get ready for the 2023 season. I think that should be the goal, and I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. But if you're Shane, you have to think long term. And if you're Shane, and I think what Shane is thinking is he is trying to build a team like the Philadelphia Eagles have built their team. He's trying to build a team. So in 2 or 3 years, yeah, you have a guy like Gray and maybe another running back that you draft in the 3rd or 4th round. That's your ground game because you're running behind a very strong offensive line, because you have better weapons at the wide receiver spot. But the impact that Barkley will have on this team this year is paramount. It is. He's way too important to this offense. And yeah, you could say, well, he'll play on the tag. He will. Ultimately, I don't think he'd hold out. But are you going to get 100% of Saquon Barkley? Are you going to get a guy that's willing to put his body on the line, much like he did last year? You know, a lot of people complain about Barkley going into last year. Oh, he's soft. He dances too much. I didn't see that last year. He was running people over. You know, everything that people said he needed to improve upon, he did. And he's earned this money. I don't take any ill will towards Saquon Barkley for wanting to get what he feels he deserves, which is a high contract, because he's a tremendous football player. It just so happens he plays the running back position, and he's had an injury history, and he's 26 years old, which is old for a running back, right? When he's hitting free agency. But I have no ill will towards Saquon Barkley, and I hope he gets as much as he deserves. But in the spot that he's currently in, I think what he is probably going to get is what I've said, $25 or $26 million a year. But if you're the Giants, yeah, I think the long-term plan is to open up this offense, become more pass-heavy, but that doesn't mean that Saquon Barkley can't be an integral part of this offense. And I think he's super important to this team as currently constructed. You need players on your team that create mismatches. You need players on your team that defenses have to game plan against. And right now, outside of Darren Waller, he's the only other guy we got. And Saquon Barkley has never had really the luxury of having another player on the team that the opposing defense really had fear in their heart. So you think about the impact that could have for Barkley. The other thing I'll say is Barkley also enhances Daniel Jones's running game. It does, because you have to worry about Barkley. And one helps the other. Obviously, Daniel Jones' running ability is going to help Barkley as well. But I think about the dynamic of this offense with Barkley and Jones, now with a pass catcher and Darren Waller. I want Saquon Barkley to be as happy as possible. Is Saquon Barkley going to lower the shoulder and put his body on the line when he's got no guaranteed money past this year? I don't know. Is he going to make a business decision? I don't know. He very well could. And I think that's something that a lot of fans don't take into account, where they say, just put the tag. Just throw the tag. You may not get 100% of Saquon Barkley if he knows he's playing for a contract the following year, in terms of him going out there and putting his body on the line, fighting for that extra yard as much as he did last year. And that's not questioning the character of Saquon Barkley. I think he's a Giant through and through. He's one of my favorite players of all time. And I hope one day I get to go to Giant Stadium and he's in the Ring of Honor, because he's exactly what I want in a football player. He's a great role model. But at the end of the day, if the Giants aren't showing him respect, well, is he going to really, do everything he needs to do every single play like he did last year? I don't know. The NFL is a business at the end of the day, and I think the Giants have to try to meet him in the middle. And I think that, to me, is thinking logically. You have a lot of people that just look at it and say, running back. Nah. Running backs don't matter. Let him go. Let him walk. I disagree. I think he does mean something to this football team. I think he means a whole lot to this football team. And without him last year, we don't make the playoffs. And without him going into this year, we don't have a shot at the playoffs as far as I'm concerned. He's our best weapon. He's the guy that stirs the drink. Yes, Daniel Jones is the most important player, but Saquon Barkley certainly helps him a whole hell of a lot. And I hope they get this deal done. And I think they will. Matter of fact, I'm pretty close to saying I know they will. It's definitely trending that way. I think they want to do right by him. And I'm looking forward to seeing Saquon Barkley lining up this year with Daniel Jones and all the weapons they got. Obviously, the key is going to be Evan Neal. We all know that. This offensive line needs to take a big step this year. Paris Campbell, really excited about him. We'll be talking about him a lot as well. But I wanted to just give my opinion and give a thorough, analysis of all the variables, I think, in this Saquon Barkley situation and why I feel the way that I do. I think I'm kind of in the middle. I'm not saying go out there and give this guy the moon and the stars. Commit 4 years to him. No, I'm saying give him a $25 million guaranteed contract. Maybe throw some incentives in there if he's going to hit outlandish all-pro level numbers, whatever it may be. But keep it to a 2-year commitment. Yeah, where maybe you have to take a little bit of a hit if you have to get out in the third year. Let it kind of mimic the Daniel Jones contract. That's the way that I look at it. You're building around Jones. Give Jones a chance to succeed. Make Saquon Barkley as happy as you possibly can without overcommitting going into 2023, because this team in 2023 needs him. In 2025, if JMS becomes an elite center, if Evan Neal becomes the next Andrew Thomas, I may think differently if everything was equal. But right now, we still have a lackluster offensive line. We still have questionable targets on the outside. We need something that the opposing defense has to game plan for. And without Barkley going at 100%, this Giants offense just will not be the same, at least in my opinion, going into 2023. Get the deal done, but get it done within reason. As always, guys, if you liked what you watched, please subscribe. Drop a comment. Maybe give me a little thumbs up. Cheers.